So you weren't about to give me a 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, well, like I thought I was. Now it says excellent connection. So, what are we even doing here, man? Come on. Okay. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I'm gonna give you a 3, 2, 1, and then we'll go.
But you're yammering for a second, right?
Yes.
Up front. Okay.
Yes. All right. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time today. Gonna talk about myself for a little bit, probably get into a little bit of OU's walkout in all black and what Lincoln Riley had to say as it relates to social justice and racial unrest in the United States, as that is the topic du jour thanks to the NBA. But I am joined by my girlfriend, Laurel Williamson. Laurel, how you doing, babe?
Hey. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. This is an impromptu live stream. I didn't tell anybody it was going to happen, though I do think we're going to start doing live streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Laurel's a big reason as to why. So the news is I'm going to start my new gig at ESPN Radio on Saturdays from 8 p.m. to midnight Central Standard Time on game night with Jeff Dickerson, who covers the Chicago Bears for the NFL, in the NFL, of course, for ESPN, and then Jonathan Hood, who does radio at ESPN 1000 in Chicago. And we're going to cover the day's sports topics, and we're going to probably do a lot of breaking news. It's going to be in the middle of college football Saturday nights, so I'm excited about that because, I mean, you guys know that I love college football. But I've been told that I am not necessarily taking this as seriously as I should be, especially by, like my girlfriend.
Yeah, man.
So, babe, when I told you
Yeah.
that this was like a thing that could happen, what did you think?
Well, the first thing I did was Google how am I going to be able to listen to it because I'm like radio. Like I don't listen to it in my car. The only time I listened to radio was when you were on Sports Animal Monday through Friday at 9, and I still had to download the app to be able to get a clear ability to listen to that. So I wanted to be able to sure I could get it, and how to get it, and then I Googled the show, and then I started to freak out, like because the time slot and I started to celebrate for you since you didn't seem to be in the mood to celebrate as much as I wanted you to.
Well, I mean, it's fun. It's also like I get it. It's not a small thing. It's a very big deal. I also am not trying to make it out to be more than it is, right?
Well, let me ask you some of the questions that I think your family and your friends and your listeners might want to know the answers to. Are you good with that? Can I just ambush you with that?
Yes.
Okay. What are you most excited about with this opportunity to do this show?
The audience that will be listening is the largest that I have ever been in front of in my entire life. That is quite exciting, especially on a night for which I can envision my friends and my family, not some parts of my family, but my friends driving home from an OU football game or from an Ohio State football game or any other football game and turning on the radio to hear me talk about their teams in addition to all the other teams that are playing football on that Saturday night and what that might mean for all the people who love me because, like I started on a piece of cardio equipment, quite literally holding my phone up in front of my face. And that was 3 years ago in September. It's August, not even into September yet. So that's what I think is cool is being able to be the symbol for so many people's belief.
Yeah, man. So talk about how it will connect to your channel, to the people who are loyal to you on YouTube, and how they might, cross-pollinate, if you will, and how they can see you and hear you in another venue and what they might get out of that.
So nothing really changes on YouTube. The show continues to go on. If nothing else, I get to do live shows, and the podcast gets to be a really outstanding piece of content in that, I get to push out more good stuff to it and do more interviews. But more than that, the number of people that are going to be participating in the community and in the conversation, I think, would grow. Nothing really changes for this space, right? Actually, nothing at all changes for this space. Think of ESPN as an add-on to what already happens here, and an opportunity for me to really figure out some stuff about myself as it relates to sports talk, because like I did not get into this thinking that I was going to be a sports talk show host. Turned out that there were a bunch of people that wanted me to talk about sports as opposed to write about sports. But because I can write about sports, I think I'm better at talking about sports.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
not necessarily, not too many people might think the same thing, right? You can get there. You understand.
Well, but that leads perfectly to my next question, which is, I know why I think ESPN has been flirting with you for a year and a half, and I know why your listeners might assume you were selected. But why do you think, based on your conversations with them as they recruited you and wooed you, why do you think they picked you?
I think it's because I'm smart and because I'm energetic. Like, one of the things that I get told over and over again is, RJ, your energy is awesome. You're passionate. You're on top of it. You really love what you're doing. I'm like, doesn't everybody who chooses to do this for a living? Like, that's the thing. Like, why do this if you're not going to have fun doing it? But also because I'm actually pretty good about talking about social justice issues. I'm pretty good about making the world a larger part of sports as opposed to sports a larger part of the world. And I'm able to keep folks' attention while talking about this stuff in 8 to 10 minute burst, which is essentially a radio segment. And in some ways, this channel and its 2,500 plus segments has been able to contribute to me maturing at a much faster rate than most other folks. Like, if you give this some real thought, 2,500 segments, let's say you do a 2-hour radio show, right? You get 8 a day, you get 40 a week, right? If you did that 50 times, you basically get to where I had been over the course of making this stuff myself over a very long period of time. And then add to that I've been doing the radio show for 14 months. So I essentially was able to truncate the timeline in some ways and learn what works, learn what doesn't, and also figure out who I am while also being who I am. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. But it brings me to another one, which you may or may not be able to answer.
Okay.
Have you been given any sort of recommendation or guidance or, God forbid, restrictions on how RJ to be on ESPN, or are they just go do you, man?
No, man, it's been very clear to me that they want me to be who I am. If it's thought out and it's what I believe, we will back you, which is all you can ask for, right? I mean, because I don't come out unreasoned. I don't come out without a really intense thought. And when you're talking about these big topics, you can't afford to miss. You have to nail it to the wall. And I appreciate that. But it's also ESPN, right? It is the largest sports platform on the face of the planet. And I need to say, stop with the ESPN libel and slander. All right? Like, I worked there. They gave me a job. We can appreciate that, right? I also appreciate that, there are people that watched what I was doing on YouTube and thought that I was good enough to do it on national sports talk show as a national sports talk show host, which I don't think people really understand the gap in thinking that need to be crossed for someone to get there. Because to some people, YouTube is social media. To some people, it's over-the-top content. For other people, it is the only thing that they consume. It is the only thing that they trust. And for folks that make their living putting people on national airways with blowtorch antenna that have, 5 signals on television, that employ thousands of talented people and even more that we don't know about, right? We know about the people we see in front of a camera. We don't know about the people we see behind the camera. speaks to what they think of me. And I'm not taking that for granted.
Yeah, man.
Oh.
Anything else in particular you would want to lift up, or people that you want to give shout outs to, especially maybe Mitch? No?
He knows.
Good.
But
everybody's listening, Mitch is RJ's agent. Talent agent, like in sports, not literary. He has another agent for that. And are you blushing yet?
A little bit.
On camera?
A little bit.
Well, just because I want to say that just because your fans might connect with what you do and how you do it in different ways, and they might not always understand what you do, it doesn't mean they don't want to wave pom-poms for you when something like this happens for you, because especially those of us who've been there from the beginning are like, heck yes, nobody deserves it more, nobody works harder, and nobody loves it more. So I'm super proud of you and all that stuff.
Thank you, baby. Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
I also think that it's interesting in that, like, I signed my contract and I might not have a show tomorrow, Saturday, when I expected to have my first show.
Talk to people about that. Yeah, talk to people about that, about how you're at the mercy of cancellations and the weirdness of...
I don't think that it's mercy. I think this is radio, right? So, like, during March Madness, if games were going to be played at 9 a.m., I wouldn't have had my show on the sports animal, because the live game preempts any talk show, because the talk show exists to talk about the live game, right? So it just makes sense. And the idea that, the NBA is getting started again on Saturday after shutting it down for a couple of days means that perhaps they're playing during the time for which I would be on with Jonathan and Jeff talking sports, which means that the next Saturday was going to be even more fun, right? Because we've had all of this happen. And that's why I wanted to do this, is because the sports and the athletes allow us to have these great conversations around not just their heroics, like Donovan Mitchell going for 50+, or Giannis Antetokounmpo becoming the 5th player in NBA history to win Defensive Player of the Year and MVP, but also to talk about what's going on in our individual communities and what is important to us. Like, I have a tremendous amount of people that like college football on this channel, right? And I love college football on this channel, but it also gives me an opportunity to talk about Austin Peay and Central Arkansas, which is also going to kick off at the same time that I'm supposed to debut on ESPN, but we'll see, right? And if you have the ESPN app, you can listen to it there. If you have ESPN in your regional area, you can listen to it there. That's what I'm most fascinated by and so interested in, is the amount of people that you can reach. Do I hear little people getting into the car?
You do, and they want to say hi to you.
Okay.
Hang on one second. Say hi to RJ too. Hi, RJ.
Hey, sweetie, how you doing?
We're on YouTube right now, talking about his new challenge at ESPN.
Is it about running?
And it's about sports.
So what kind of sport? Running, jumping, climbing, swimming.
What does he watch most?
Football.
Football. College football.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Weapon X. Love you, sweetie.
Okay, I was taking you off speaker.
Okay.
They said I love you too, and that said, we're gonna go get our after-school treat.
Ice cream?
Maybe. I haven't decided yet.
Oh, is it the other thing?
Yeah, because we have the other thing.
Oh, okay, cool. Then I will.
I'll see you later.
Okay. Love you. Thank you, baby.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. Okay. As you can see, that is my girlfriend and her girls that she picked up from school. And I'm so grateful for her participating in this announcement that I've been sitting on giving you guys for 6 weeks or something. And believe it or not, there's another good thing that's going to happen here to all of us here in the next, I think, week or so that I could tell you about. But since I got you here, I'm going to take your questions. If you haven't listened to the RJ Young Show live before, this is your opportunity, and I appreciate it. I like taking questions from the chat and responding to those questions in the chat. I also would like to take an opportunity to tell you, If you missed the live show, you can download the live show at the RJ Young Show podcast, wherever it is you get your podcast. Upload there 3 times a week. There is a podcast only exclusive, which is to say that it doesn't necessarily appear on the YouTube channel, that you could get there. And I'm really trying to invest more in that particular avenue as it relates to content, because I know one of the things that people had really asked me for at the beginning was to do something like that. So I'm going to try to do just that. For those of you that did make it to this impromptu live show that I told nobody about, thank you so much. I see lots of congratulations in the channel, but I also want to kick it back to y'all. Like, there's 50,000 people that click the subscribe button. There's, over 900,000 people that watch this channel on a, monthly basis. It's awesome. So thank you so much for doing that. James Lill asks, are they having IG any college football September? I don't know what you're asking. I don't know what IG means. The next goal, Joel Klatt. So this is radio, guys, not TV, right? This is radio. So leave it there. Congratulations, man. It's a long time coming. Well deserved, Boomer. That's Jesse Acosta. Thank you, Jesse. Tyler asked what I'm going to be doing at ESPN. What I'm going to be doing is talking on the radio with Jonathan Hood and Jeff Dickerson. It's a show called Game Night from 8 to midnight Central Standard Time, where we're going to be taking on biggest topics in sports specifically that day, which probably means a lot of college football in the fall, a lot of NFL in the fall, Major League Baseball as we get toward the World Series, and continue to go from there. I'm expecting to have a good time. So I actually want to pivot from that to OU football. Yeah. So Lincoln Riley and his team walked out to the Unity Garden at the University of Oklahoma dressed in all black, wearing their mask in solidarity, as they wanted to make a statement about how they feel and what they hope to inspire others to do as it relates to the shooting of Jacob Blake, who was shot 7 times in the back in Kenosha, Wisconsin, by police as he was reaching into his car where his 3, 5, and 8-year-old were. This is in large part a response to what we have been dealing with all summer, which is Black Lives Matter as it relates to police brutality. That's what Black Lives Matter is about, right? Is to try to get police reform and to get everyone to understand more about their black brothers and sisters. What I thought was interesting is that Lincoln Riley and his team had several conversations where they decided to do this, and they decided to do this as one, and Lincoln Riley was very much upfront leading this demonstration. I don't want to call it a protest because that didn't feel like what it is. Media were there to hear them out. And one of the things that I wanted to stress about this is good. Just like the NBA choosing to strike for 2 days is good. Just like Chuba Hubbard choosing to call out Mike Gundy is good. But what do you do after that? What I have not seen from anyone is a really good plan of action as to how to move forward once you do these things that call attention to whatever it is that you want to make specific about yourself. To which I thought about how many people understand what activism is and how to actually go about being an activist. And that is not to incite other people's fury. Far from it. It is to try to inspire and galvanize, right? So one of the things that I was thinking about when I wrote down, as I am the grandson of a civil rights activist, is what my grandmommy would tell me, which things like problems facing the communities do not result from a lack of effective solutions. We have plenty of effective solutions, but from a lack of power to implement those solutions, right? For black folks in particular, and as with many minorities, it's a numbers game. The United States is 13% black, okay? 6% of that population is black and male, okay? We make up the majority of football players in college, and in the NFL, we make up the majority of men's basketball players. So what can you do? You have to try to create coalitions to try to galvanize separate organizations that might not have a whole lot in common around a common vision, which is to say that you have to get a lot of other white folks involved in particular, but also you have to get a lot of different religious faiths involved and believe that what you're striving for together is worthwhile. And I look to unions as to how to do this, but I also wanted to highlight the change in communities, like change in policy, comes from building long-term power by organizing people and the money that they raise around a common vision, which is not unlike what you might see from any union, right? Add to that, organizations are only able to achieve this by enlisting broad indigenous leadership, not one or two charismatic leaders, to knit together a diverse interest in local institutions, which is your whole grassroots situation. And ideally, your cities, local governments are doing this. But when they are not doing this, perhaps it's just as simply going ahead and getting the union that might be the Teamsters, right, to go ahead and get to your other organizations that might be nurses, right, or whatever guild it is you're a part of, and seeing where you can also reach some common ground and reach a place where you are of one mind about what initiatives you want to take. Because many of you will also understand that the Teamsters were a very powerful union because they were of one mind. They were sound. And it turns out that the NBA had botched this. One, by not having a plan. The Milwaukee Bucks acting on their own among 30 teams, or among the teams remaining in the bubble playing the playoffs. Los Angeles Lakers and the LA Clippers also took up truck with them. You had a Udonis Haslam and a Chris Paul having to shout down Pat Bev, who was talking noise to Michelle Roberts about how he pays her salary. And then you had something like a consensus of how to move forward. Major League Baseball was in fits and starts. You had some teams choose not to play. You had some teams choose to play. The NHL played on Thursday, but chose not to play, or played on Wednesday, but chose not to play on Thursday or Friday. We'll see how that continues to ebb out. But one of the things that I did want to highlight is the WNBA has been of one mind. Check that out. The WNBA has been really great about what they're planning to do and how they're planning to do it. The WNBA also was able to achieve unity in getting all of their players from every single team into one group shot to say what they stand for. I have not seen such solidarity among athletes in any place at any time over the course of this summer. You've had a few leaders that want to achieve change, and you had others that want to join them, but you haven't had any conversation about what that change looks like. It's beyond platitudes and beyond broad generalizations. Policy affects change. Money affects change. Our general attitudes, not so much, though our general attitudes do need to matter as it relates to each other. Thought that was interesting. All right, let's see what we got in the chat. Congratulations, my man. Told you ESPN Fox a little over a year ago. Proud of you and look forward to your meteoric rise through the ranks. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Let's see. Who else we got in here? This dude right here. Hey, there's no reason. Like, every time I do one of these and I try to entertain the chat, we got bozos showing up to ask stupid questions or to say things that are stupid. Let's see. Danny Dawson, what you got? Best difference between now and June is more people asking. Okay, so now what needs to happen? In Tulsa, first step of many is more pressure for public accountability structure over the police. This is very true. And I told a story about this that I will relate to you here on this show. So Tuesday, we voted. Tulsa mayoral elections were going on. We also had several propositions to vote for. I found my precinct. It's at the Union 6th and 7th grade center. And I went there to vote. I cast my ballot, right? Put it in. Voting is my birthright. My grandmother sacrificed her job, her livelihood, her well-being so that I could do that. So I take it very seriously. Just as dignity is my birthright. So I'm able to go home, see the girls, see Laurel, look them in the eye, and know that I did right by them. But as I was going to my home where I do this show, I saw two police officers trying to move a trailer that was blocking the road to a number of homes in my neighborhood. And I did something I normally would not have done. Something I would not have done if Jacob Blake had not been shot 7 times in the back by police on that Sunday. I stopped my truck. I got out of my truck, and I asked those police officers if they could use my help. They said yes. Police terrify me. but I thought this was important. So I stepped between them, and we lifted that trailer together, the three of us, and we moved it to the side of the road so people could get by. One of the police officers was black. One of the police officers was white. The black police officer fist pounded me, told me thank you. The white police officer told me thank you while he was investigating whether or not the trailer had been stolen. And then I, thinking my job was done, decided to walk and not run, though I did want to run, to my truck because police officers scare me. Police officers scare me because I've always lived my life in a way that I want to try to avoid them. One of the reasons that I became an Eagle Scout is because it was a great predictor of success, and it was a great way of demonstrating that I'm a good man. When I was in high school on the north side going to Booker T, and I was getting challenged by police officers as to what I was doing outside Tops and Bottoms in the Springdale Shopping Center, I told them that I'm an Eagle Scout. And that did it, right? I'm a good man. I'm a good boy. All these little things that I would do to try to avoid the police. So engaging with those police, the reason that I did it was because I wanted to imprint upon those police the image of a black man helping them, the image of a black man meaning something more to them. Because only in those interactions will they be able to actually see another black man, another black boy, and give them the benefit of the doubt. Give them the courtesy of being a full person in front of them and not someone who was simply trying to make mischief, or more than that, trying to commit a crime. But I was shaking when I got in my driveway. I was gripping my wheel very tightly. I was sweating. It was not an easy thing for me to do, and it should have been. But that's not the country that I was raised in. 1 in 3 black men born after 2003 will go to prison. 1 in 14 white men will do the same. Those statistics matter. They matter even more because there are far fewer black men than there are white men. I don't believe for 1 second that there are that many black men or black boys that should be imprisoned. I think that there are policies and systems in place that help that number be as high as it is. So I agree that only these things can change if we want them to change, and the questions about what happens next are as important as anything else. I've been on a police ride-along. I've been on several. They don't change my opinion on this thing. Let me see. What else we got in here? Okay, so a thing that I did want to discuss relates to football. Y'all realize that Clemson could have the best college football freshman class of anybody in 2020? Like, that's a thing that actually is on the table. I want to talk about it. First, I want to do a read. Always wanted to get your MBA. What's the holdup? If it's tuition fees, let me tell you, the folks at the Get Money Management Institute have a deal for you. At the Get Money Management Institute, they've just slashed their entrance fee, their late fee, their slushy fee, and your fee by 50%. That's right. It's now officially affordable to get your MBA at the Get Money Management Institute. Secure your space in their MBA program today at the Get Money Management Institute. It just takes one phone call to get this online degree that's not worth the effort to blow your nose with. But mention RJ and receive an additional 20% off the online campus ebook store to secure your future with a GMMI MBA, or as they call it, a Master Badass Diploma. Some restrictions may apply. Absolutely no refunds. All right. Let's get back to this topic that I thought was wild interesting. Okay, so Brian Brzee is number 1 player in the country at his position. Miles Murphy is the number 7 player in the country at his position. Both play defensive line. DJ Uyunglele is a number 10 overall player in the country at quarterback. And then DeMarcus Bowen was a number 20 overall player in the country at running back. And then Trenton Simmons was number 26 overall in the country at linebacker. So, as the folks at 247 have pointed out, Brazee is as advertised, as is Myles Murphy. Matter of fact, Dabo Swinney went out of his way to say both of these dudes can absolutely positively play ball, which is wild, right? Because at 6'5", 265, and an edge dude, you can see how Myles Murphy impacts your defense. But Brazee, 6'5", 290, and such wiggle that he can play running back, he's going to be an immediate impact player. And Brazee, like Wnba, was on campus in January to help Clemson prepare for LSU. Didn't help a lot because they lost 42-25. But you get the point there. With the early enrolling of guys like Brazee, expect them to play early and often in this 9+1 schedule that the ACC is playing. Matter of fact, Sweeney's quote about Brazee is, he's probably better than advertised if I'm going to be honest with you. He's made huge strides. Same thing for Myles Murphy. I think those two guys just make you better the moment they step onto the field. For a defensive line that 2 years ago had all 4 of its starters drafted into the NFL, 3 in the first round, if I'm not mistaken, and Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, right? I think Austin Bryant was like a 13th overall, second round, third round pick. If I'm getting that correct. Goodness me. And then you're asking these dudes to come in and play right away, and they can. Add to that, Wnba is the heir apparent to Trevor Lawrence. And yeah, he's going to sit this year because Trevor Lawrence is the starting quarterback. But he's supremely talented. And he's also enormous. About as big as Myles Murphy. He's got a tremendous fastball. Coming out of St. John Bosco, he was throwing 95 on the mound. There were conversations about whether or not he would play both sports as a true freshman. He's going to stick to football to start, and then we'll see how it goes. But the quote from Tony Elliott, offensive coordinator at Clemson, is he as good as some others that he has on the depth chart? And he says, it's a tough question, but it's cut from the same cloth. They share the same demeanor, poised, and command. Nothing is overwhelming. They are similar from their protection standpoint. They both have a very good foundation, very well coached coming out of high school. And then DeMarcus Bowman at tailback is going to be the third string tailback in what I think is an outstanding backfield. Travis Etienne is number 1. Then Lynn J. Dixon, who averaged 6.1 yards per carry. Then DeMarcus Bowman, who might be one of the supreme X factors in all of college football. The quote from Tony Elliott, who recruited him to tailback, says, DeMarcus is as advertised, running with the ball. He's got the juice in his legs. He can really, really go. The biggest thing is you go back and watch him in high school and you understand the program he came from. Kind of a totally different philosophy. They were huddle, slow pace, quarterback ran on the sidelines. Look, the biggest thing for him right now is getting adjusted to the communication of the play call. But he understands football. He's got a great understanding. DeMarcus Bowman is next. As I look around the country and I look at the tailback position, I really do wish that it had more value than it does right now. Because with Bijan Robinson at Texas, I know that dude's a hitter. With, again, Bowman at Clemson, I know that dude's a hitter. Seth McGowan at Oklahoma, I know that dude is a hitter. Trey Sanders at Alabama, absolute monster waiting. Friggin' Kenny McIntosh, right? I know he's a hitter. Kendall Milton, I know he's a hitter. The number of dudes that absolutely could positively play running back in college football right now is staggering. And that's before we start talking about kids in the Big Ten or in the Pac-12. I'm really excited to see these dudes. But on the defense side of the ball, Trenton Simmons might be the heir apparent to one, yes, Isaiah Simmons. Talking about how he plays the Sam linebacker position, Jamie Scalzi, had this to say. He got a pick today in practice, right? Made a great play today. Freaky talented guy. People don't know, man. The guy was a running back in high school. He's only been playing linebacker for a year. He's got all the talent in the world. Playing under a guy like Coach Venables, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be an All-American one day. Still growing, still coming into his shell, but he's figuring it out quickly. One thing I know about Brent Venables is that man's front seven is going to be elite every single time. It's just going to be outstanding. And to have a guy like Trenton Simmons that you can look to try to give you some of what Isaiah Simmons had, expect Clemson to be right there in the ACC championship game again. Expect them to be in the college football playoff again. Expect them to compete for a national championship game again. Oh, Corey Harden coming in here with the $10 super chat. Appreciate this. Love the channel, RJ. I just watched your video about the B1G. Hopefully they will figure something out. I have never seen the live show. Figured I'd check it out. OH. IO. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate you, homie. Like, this is the fun of doing a live show for me, is I get to participate with the folks that can show up in the chat and the folks that are actually here to talk about some college football. And, we get into race. We'll do that. I need to just do another race segment because I've got so many questions about this that I need to entertain. Let me see. If we have questions in the chat, one of the reasons that I love doing it. So if you have questions, drop them in there. Laurel, she's in the chat. That pillow was an epic birthday gift from someone awesome. So that pillow behind me, that's from my girlfriend. She got it for me for my birthday. And you can see that I'm laying on her chest in between her thighs on the pillow. That's the story of the pillow. Like, I'm watching college football on TV while she's half naked and cradle me in her arms. It's a wild, awesome picture. All right, let's see. College football starts September 5th. No, college football starts tomorrow night, August 29th. Central Arkansas versus Austin Peay. The number 11 team versus number 13 team in FCS. I made a preview about it. It's on this channel. I made a 20-minute preview about FCS football. So when everybody wants to tell you that RJ only talks about OU, Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, whatever it is, friggin' Coastal Carolina, you show them. I made a preview video where I actually talked to an FCS insider about UCA and about Austin Peay because I'm that amped that we get to talk about this stuff in a meaningful way. If they're going to play football, I'm going to be around to watch football, talk football. I can't wait to get this one on and popping. Let's see. Is OU going to get Wnba or come on a visit? I think a visit is highly likely. I don't think that a commitment is. I think right now he wants to get to Oklahoma. He wants to bring one of his parents to Oklahoma. He wants to take it all in. And if Dennis Simmons can talk him into a commitment, kudos to him because he certainly got the receipts, right? 2 first-round draft picks in the past 2 years in CeeDee Lamb and Marquise Brown. Add to that a Biletnikoff Award winner in D.D. Westbrook in 2016 and a Heisman finalist in D.D. Westbrook in 2016. That's just in the past 4 years. Now, take a look at what Ohio State has to offer. Now, the first-round draft picks since 2007 have been underperforming at the wide receiver position in such a way that Michael Thomas is the best wide receiver in the NFL, second-round pick out of Ohio State. Take a look at Terry McLaurin, another dude that was undervalued that is expected to have a breakout year for the Washington NFL team. Take a look at KJ Hill, a dude that I thought was going to be perhaps a first-round draft pick at the start of last year, who's a seventh-round draft pick. They just haven't done what they need to do. Brian Hartline knows this as much as anybody else. He's hoping to change that with guys like Chris Olave, but if they don't get to play football, it's going to be difficult to see that happen, right? Meanwhile, Garrett Wilson is coming on. Mookie Cooper is coming on. Jackson Smith and Jigba is coming on. The same thing goes with Julian Fleming, who's going to be outstanding as soon as he gets to touch the ball. Wnba joining that makes them that much better. But Wnba also knows that Lincoln Riley and the Oklahoma offense have been putting up number after number after number after number every single year. Outstanding offensively. Outstanding at putting the ball in the end zone. And your wide receivers are consistently performing at a high end. Sterling Shepard comes out of Oklahoma and the Dennis Simmons tree. They just pump him out. It'll be interesting. If they get him on the campus, which I do think is highly likely, I think you could probably see a 2-horse race between Ohio State and Oklahoma, even as Wnba is still very much entertaining Washington and Clemson, of course. So that, I hope, is a good answer to your question. Let's see. See what we got. Jamari's World. Hey, RJ, do you think someone will contend? I guess he's saying we will contend for the Big 12 title this year. I think this year it's up for grabs for a lot of teams to make it. All right, so maybe you're not talking about Oklahoma because they've won the last 5 in a row. If it's Texas, I think you're having a great argument, right? Because as I'm going to say later on in another segment that's going to be uploaded around 5 o'clock, adding Brendan Schooler to this offense only makes this offense that much more potent. Tarek Black, also added as a grad transfer from Michigan. Add to that Josh Moore, Brendan Eagles, Malcolm Epps. Roshan Johnson might be the number 1 tailback on the depth chart. Bijan Robinson, Keontae Ingram, Sam Cosmi at offensive tackle, and then that's before we get to Jake Smith and Jordan Whittington, all with Sam Ehlinger in what has to be a magic year for him. If it's not a magic year for Sam Ehlinger, we got a problem, all right? Because he has the tools around him, and he's gotten better each and every year. Now, if Chris Ash can get that defense to play in the kind of football that their talent suggests they could play, yeah, you're contending for a Big 12 championship. Because with Caden Stearns back there, with Josh Thompson back there, with Joseph Asai playing a much more natural outside linebacker position, add Verdon Broughton, who I think is a true freshman that nobody's talking enough about. That dude is built, right? Like, just different. I'm excited to see what Texas can do. They're going to face off with UTEP to start the season. We'll see how it goes from there once they jump into Big 12 play. Texas Christian is also another one to look for. If Marcel Brooks was eligible, I think they could finish second, third easy. But even without that, right, you got J.D. Spielman on the outside. You got Tay Barber on the outside. You got Zach Evans in the backfield, right? Assuming you get Max Duggan back, that's going to be your starting quarterback, but that's going to be the issue right now. Matt Baldwin had to medically retire. Max Duggan was out with an issue that is not COVID related, but it's something that he's had since birth. Who's going to be your starting quarterback, right? But defensively, you're going to be great. Trayvon Moehrig is back there. Again, if you get Marcel Brooks, Garrett Waller is back there. They have an opportunity to be really good. Next year, they're a threat to win the Big 12 title. Oklahoma State is going to go as Spencer Sanders goes. He threw 16 touchdown passes last year. He threw 11 picks. According to Pro Football Focus, he's one of the worst quarterbacks in all of FBS. He's got to be better because Tylan Wallace is one of the best wide receivers in this entire season, right? Of all the teams, even if Ohio State was playing, even if Pac-12 was playing, Big Ten was playing, he would be one of the best wide receivers on the face of the planet. Added that 2,000-yard rusher in the backfield named Chuba Hubbard. Exists between those 2 seconds between taking the ball from the snap, handing it to Chuba Hubbard, get out of the way. Add to that, Spencer Sanders has tremendous running ability. And then the defense has gotten better. Jim Knowles' defense is wildly underrated. You get Calvin Bundage, you get Malcolm Rodriguez, you get Kobe Harvell Peel. You ought to be able to win some football games. You ought to be able to challenge for a Big 12 title. Those are the teams that I'm watching at the top. And then there's Iowa State laying in wait. If Iowa State can get past Texas, get past Oklahoma, they're in the Big 12 championship game this year. It's that simple. I really believe that. See what else you got in here. What gives you so much confidence in Spencer Rattler but not Miles Brennan? It's a good question coming from Tavares Jackson. Rattler's a 5-star quarterback. Miles Brennan was not. Rattler set the Arizona State passing record. Miles Brennan set Mississippi State passing record. Spencer Rattler comes from a system that was just like the one that he ran in high school. Miles Brennan inherits a system that Joe Brody overhauled. When he was recruited, they were still playing I formation, and they were running, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Pro-style quarterback versus a dual-threat quarterback. The weapons at his disposal are dudes that he's been playing football with for a very long time. Not the same with Miles Brennan, right? I also add to this. Lincoln Riley is the head coach. Lincoln Riley is the offensive coordinator. Lincoln Riley is the quarterback's coach at Oklahoma. Ed Orgeron don't do none of that. And until Joe Brady came along, Steve Ensminger couldn't be trusted to do none of that. They were talking about firing Steve Ensminger. Ensminger brought in Joe Brady. Joe Brady corrected the offense. He's off to Carolina. Let's say North Carolina. He's off to Carolina. So that is tremendous, okay? Add to that, he also plays in a league for which is not as difficult to play through as the SEC, let alone the SEC West. Then add to that, you got more new faces at LSU than an integrated high school playing offense and defense. You lost 16 dudes that started for you. 14 of them got drafted. Offensive line, gone. You only returned Jamar Chase and Terrence Marshall at wide receiver. You got to trust Chris Curry or Ty Davis-Price or John Emery. Then defensively, you're running a whole new scheme with a whole new coordinator. You lose Kerry Vincent, but LSU fans want to keep telling me that's not a big deal. We'll find out. Elias Ricks better come on. So shall Cordell Flott. Derek Stingley's going to be responsible for a lot. And then you need Jabril Cox to be as advertised. There's a lot of moving pieces to LSU, right? I understand LSU fans feel some kind of way about me, but I still don't think that they're going to be that good this year as the defending national champs. However, if you want to get into the conversation of dynasty and you want to get into the conversation of being great, you got to do well this year. You got to make the SEC championship game. That means you got to get past Bama. You got to get past Auburn. You got to get past A&M. You got to get past whatever Ole Miss, Mississippi State turned out to be. And an Arkansas team, quite frankly, ain't got nothing to lose. They're playing with house money. They have the toughest schedule in all of college football history. They're going to want you. And after last year, where Ed Orgeron said out loud, Arkansas ain't been anybody in a long time. We don't really see it as a big deal that we beat them. Knowing that he didn't mean to be mad, still getting under Arkansas fans' skin. Add to this, Ed Orgeron got his own issues. He's taken issue with Oklahoma and the Sooner Summit, going, I don't know if any NCAA violations happened or any rules were broken, but I suspect that they might have been. And he's like, I don't really want to comment on this. I want to see what the NCAA does. But he, like literally everybody else but Oklahoma, believes there were some violations that occurred, right? Whether it was with coaches or whether it was with facilities that were kind of left unlocked. I find it interesting that Ed Orgeron is in his feelings about what Oklahoma was doing in August during a dead period. I never thought of LSU as being shook, but Ed Orgeron is showing us that they feel shook. I think that is the thing that I take away from that. If Oklahoma can shake LSU after LSU won 63-28 in Atlanta, Oklahoma might be on to something. And if you're an LSU fan, feel some kind of way about it. Let me know in the comments. Y'all always do. Let's see what we got here. Doc Winston Boogie. Are opt-outs final, or can a player opt back in if he changes his mind at a later date? It's a good question. The answer is yes, they can opt back in. The likelihood of you being taken back in by your coaches and by your teammates is what you're dealing with. So if a Kennedy Brooks, for instance, right, team that we associate ourselves with, me and Doc Winston Boogie, decided to opt back in, I think Oklahoma would take him with open arms because he's that good. If he wasn't that good, might tell him to kick rocks, right? In February, Justin Fuente took it of his own volition to say anybody goes in the transfer portal ain't coming back out at Vatech. And I'm going, fool, why? Why would you say that? Why would you want to alienate people that might be able to help you win football games when your entire career is not judged by your players, but by how many wins and losses you have? If you have dudes that can help you win more games than you lose, you're going to be in a better position. So why would you want to close a door? To what? Prove a point? Because if you're ruling by fear, you're going to lose the room. Kids are smart. They talk to each other. They understand what's at stake here. But to answer Doc's question, yes, you can opt back in. We'll see if the coaches and the teammates want to let you opt back in. Let me see. RJ, who are the dudes you are excited to see this season? Eric Gilbert at LSU is one of them. Bryce Young, if he ever gets on the field, Mike Jones allows it, is another. I want to see what Quincy Roach does down at Miami, stepping up in class to a Power 5 conference after being Defensive Player of the Year in the American. Absolutely a dude. This weekend, Robert Rochelle, cornerback at UCA, 5 interceptions, 18 pass breakups, 4.38 speed, 3.89 shuttle, which is the top 5% of NFL draft in the scouting combine, and 11'8" broad jump, which would have made him the 4th longest broad jumper in combine history. That dude is a sleeper. Also, watch another dude in that game for Austin Peay in Josephus Smith, a 5'9", 285-pound defensive tackle. Had 18.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. Those are a few of the dudes that I'm excited to see play football this year. I want to see what Malcolm Rodriguez does at Oklahoma State. I think he could have himself one hell of a year. Deshaun White is a dude that we all expect to elevate and be really great. Owen Pappoe at Auburn is another absolute monster. What did Dylan Moses do with a year off and a year to rehab his ACL injury at Alabama? That's another. Store brand Cam Newton, Jamie Newman, if he's a starting quarterback. His last 3-4 games at Wake Forest wasn't very good. It's actually very bad. I'm worried about store brand Cam Newton in Georgia because I know Todd Monken wants to throw the ball around the yard. And I know they got this bevy of running backs back there, but they need to be able to do more than just run the football. And they need to find somebody else to complement George Pickens until Dominic Blaylock gets better. But they really need to be able to go 3 and 4 wide whenever possible, get the tight ends involved over there. Another dude that I'm really excited to see is, can Sam Howell do it again? Like, think about it. 3,800 yards passing, over 30 touchdowns for North Carolina. Can you do it again? Now, you got one of the easiest schedules in the ACC. Can you do it again? Ian Book needs to prove that he's not Jake Fromm 2.0. You got to beat Clemson in November. You got to get to the ACC title game. You got to get back to the playoff and not get run. So those are a few of the folks that I'm absolutely looking forward to that are absolute dudes. Kyle Hamilton is another dude that I need to point out at Notre Dame. He has an opportunity to be a Jim Thorpe Award finalist along with Patrick Surtain Jr. at Alabama, Derek Stingley at LSU. Like, those are a few of the guys. I hope that answers your question. Let's see. What else we got? What show are you going to be on? I rewind the live show, dog. What will it take for Buki to be a first-round draft worthy? Ooh, that's a very good question from Noah Gordon. I think that's going to be the last one that we try to take here. Buki at 5'9"-ish would have to show elite cover skills. He would have to probably come up with 6-7 INTs. He'd have to be a first-team All-American, and even then, he might end up as a second-round selection just based on his height. The reason that the 5-star status assigned to Buki was controversial is not because he's not that good. It's because he does not have the innate talent that we associate with 5 stars. And what I mean by innate talent isn't your intuition. It isn't your ball skills. It's how tall are you and how fast are you and what is your agility like. Because when we talk about first-round NFL draft picks at the cornerback spot, 6'1", 6'2" is what we're looking at. Defensive backs, the same thing, 6'1" to 6'3". If you are 6'4", maybe a top 10 pick. If you are 5'8" to 5'9", the wide receiver in front of you towers over the top of you at 6'3" to 6'6". You need to be able to run stride for stride and not get high-pointed out of a ball. Now, Buki has shown great awareness. He plays the most difficult position in college football in the nickel slot. And he's gotten better in the last 2 years. He's still maturing. He's one of the most capable leaders on that football team, and I believe the world of him. But to get in a first-round draft selection, he would need to come up with more interceptions than anybody else in the Big 12, and probably then some. Because I'll bet not a whole lot of y'all in this chat remember, Douglas Coleman had 8 interceptions at Texas Tech last year. He was not a first-round draft selection, and he was taller than Buki. You're going to have to do enough. Right? You're going to have to do enough and then some, which means that you're going to have to put together one of the best defensive back seasons anybody's ever seen with 2 fewer games in a regular season, right? Because you're playing 9+1, which is a 10-game schedule for your regular season where you're used to playing 12. Add to that what you might be able to do in a conference championship, what you might be able to do in a playoff, what you might be able to do in a national championship game. He's going to basically have to come up with a pick a game. And I just don't see that many people throwing at him. And if they do, it's probably a David Sills situation where he got exposed as a true freshman in 2018. They put the 6'5" dude over the top of the 5'9" dude in the slot, and they went at his neck. That's what's going to happen to Buki year in and year out. Problem is, he's getting better. So against Texas Christian, they lined him up over the top of Pro Wells, tight end at Texas Christian. 6'5", 260. Buki came up with a game-winning play just to get in between himself or get in between Pro Wells and the ball. It was outstanding for him. I'm interested to see what he does in this year. Let's see. Blaylock tore his ACL again in practice. Yo. Ugh, that sucks. That truly sucks. All right, one more question from MSU fan number 1, because I don't really get a whole lot of Michigan State folks showing up. 1 on the channel, 2 in the chat. Do you remember the 2015 Michigan State and Michigan last play? What do you think about Michigan State this year? I don't remember that play. I do think that Michigan State is going to be great with Mel Tucker and Scotty Hazelton alone. Like, I just trust those two dudes. Scotty Hazelton was great coordinator at Kansas State coming over from North Dakota State. Mel Tucker, one of the great defensive coordinators in college football, who also did a stint, I believe, at Ohio State and in the NFL before going to Georgia, moving to Colorado, and then taking the job at Michigan State. I'm really interested to see what they can do offensively, though, because Michigan State has prided itself on defense for a very long time. They run the ball, they play defense. What happens if they're able to match themselves with an outstanding offensive coordinator, right? There's a number of dudes that could foot that bill. I'll be interested to see who Mel Tucker pairs Scotty Hazelton with, and then maybe they can compete in the Big Ten. But until they get a coordinator that I can trust, or until that coordinator that they have starts to start throwing the ball around the yard in such a way that they're going to put up 40 a game, we're looking at 9-3, perhaps, with losses to the class teams in the Big Ten. Just the way that it's going to be, the way that it has been. All right. If you like the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel, because I upload a video every single day. It's actually like 4 segments a day that I do at a minimum. Sometimes it's 5. The live show goes on 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can check out the live shows on the RJ Young Show, on the RJ Young Show podcast. Man, I went to go celebrate my girlfriend. Now I can't remember what I'm talking about. At least that's how it feels. Thank y'all for joining me in this journey. Hopefully you'll catch me on ESPN Radio, game night, 8 p.m. to midnight Central Standard Time. Hopefully every Saturday thereafter. It depends on what the games look like. If there are changes, you can follow me on Twitter, where I post about this stuff from time to time. You can also, again, just reach out in the comments, because I usually get back to everyone. All right. That, I think, is it for me. Deuces.